Good morning, everyone, and welcome to ClearanceJobs Connect. I'm Esty Kearney with MC Dean, and we're proud to partner with ClearanceJobs to kick off today's event. At MC Dean, we design, build, and sustain the systems behind the nation's most recognizable mission-critical facilities, secure environments, complex infrastructure, and global enterprises. And like all of you, we know that people are at the heart of the mission. That's why we're excited to support this conversation about cleared talent and policy shaping the future of our workforce. It's my privilege to introduce today's kickoff keynote, featuring three members of the ClearanceJobs Policy Advisory Board. Thank you all. Jamie Jones-Miller, Dean and CEO of Northeastern University Arlington. Charlie Phalen, former Director of the Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency. And Vice Admiral Bob Sharp, U.S. Navy retired, former Director of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Together, they'll share insights on the challenges and opportunities ahead for the cleared community. So please join me in welcoming the ClearanceJobs Policy Advisory Board. Yay. Thank you all so much for being a part of this. We've always had a kickoff keynote. Bob Sharp was our amazing keynote last year. And when I was thinking through the agenda this year, it's like we have so many amazing people and speakers, and I really wanted to give you the chance to hear from some of the members of our Policy Advisory Board, just because this is really critical to what ClearanceJobs does. We really care about the policy space and improving the hiring process holistically. So this is part of our brain trust in doing that. So I really appreciate them taking the time to be here. Want to tee off a question to you first, Bob, which is great because you're right beside me, so I can actually see you right here. I was going to ask you what's keeping you up at night, and I was like, that was a really dumb question. I must have been like, how many glasses of wine did I have when I wrote that one? I want to be relaxed. I'm assuming nothing keeps you up at night. But I do want you to think about this moment in the cleared workforce, which we've talked a lot about. Kind of what are your thoughts around what's happening in the national security workforce right now?
Yeah, thanks for the question, and then also thanks for modifying the question, right? Because that gives me leeway to talk about anything I want. But before I get to the question, I just want to echo the thoughts of thanking you all for being here. What you spend your time doing matters, or at least it should. And the fact that you're spending your time here matters, and you should make it matter. And one of the things I always challenge people to do in these venues is I'm not going to repeat what you said. Don't worry. But make sure it matters. And one of the ways you can do that is commit to meeting somebody you don't know while you're here and actually exchange contact data, and then actually use that contact data, right, to grow your network, because the power of what you all do is represented here. It's the people that do this. It's the partnerships. It's the networks that you build. And then also do me a favor, especially in the current climate right now, when you go back to your parent organizations, make sure you thank the individual that supported you coming here. There's a lot of organizations right now that are pulling back on people being allowed to go to conferences, symposiums, thinking, hey, maybe that's a waste of time. It's not a waste of time unless you make it a waste of time. There is return on this investment. You know, it's not about what happens here. It's about what happens next going forward. And this is a time of challenge, a time of opportunity. I'm glad you modified the question. Some of you may have heard me share this story about what keeps you up at night. It's a question that you start to get more and more as you get older. And I was the intel commander for Central Command, and my boss was Jim Mattis, 4-star Marine at that time, went on to be our Secretary of Defense, and he's quite a character. And his response was the best one I've ever heard, which was, at this stage of my life, nothing keeps me up at night. I keep other people up at night. I'm sure. And I always wanted to be cool enough to say that, but I'm not Jim Mattis, right? So I never was. But when I was retiring, I similarly reflected and said, nothing keeps me up at night based off of my trust and confidence in the people that are continuing to do this job, right? I don't lose any sleep because I know people like you are committed to making sure that we go out, we spot, assess, we recruit the nation's best and brightest and bring them into national security. So nothing keeps me up at night. I'll tell you something that almost kept me up at night, which was when we, during this last, in the springtime, I think it was, when we the administration said we're going to make the workforce smaller, and one of the levers we're going to pull and see what happens is we're going to get rid of all our probationary hires. Right? Stupid. Like, don't do that. I mean, these are individuals that we spend a lot of time and energy going out and specifically recruiting, pulling them into this field quite often to do something for less money than they could in the outside world or in a different business because they were committed to the mission. Thankfully, we had leaders that rolled up their sleeves quite effectively. I don't think all agencies, but a lot of the agencies, to at least make sure we didn't do that, right? That went through and said, here's why that would be a bad idea. Here's why we need to keep these individuals, and we saved a lot of talent. But if we did that once, we could do that again. So the thing that almost keeps me up at night is that in a rush to be effective and efficient, we will overlook the fact that it is our people that is our strength.
So now to you, Jamie, kind of talking about technology, AI. I know Northeastern, you've kind of focused on resources for federal workers, for the workforce. How should, the workforce be preparing for the rapid integration of emerging technology and what they do?
So I am here wearing an academic hat. I did something crazy about 3.5 years ago and left the only career path I ever knew, which was government. I worked on Capitol Hill. I worked at the Department of Defense. I got my first security clearance as a 19-and-a-half-year-old intern at DIA. And when you were thinking about this question, I wondered if I went back to the Pentagon today, and I've been gone for 5 years, could I survive? I don't know, because so much has moved and how fast and how quickly things have moved. And I'm consistently thinking about this inventory of my own skills, first of all. So what is in your toolbox? Have you taken an inventory? What are the gaps? I know how to launch and recover aircraft off of an aircraft carrier. How to integrate AI into carrier operations is not something that my brain can wrap itself around. So I knew I had to fill that toolbox with some AI skills. But what I want to say, really at the heart of the answer here, is don't forget about, technological literacy, data literacy, but also remember the human literacy part. How humans engage with technology, how humans engage with data, how humans engage with AI. So don't be in such a rush to just pad and get the certificates and add to your resume just in that portfolio of AI and data and technical skills. Don't forget to lose sight of the human skills. And that leads me to what keeps me up at night or doesn't keep me up at night. Remember that every leader's function may be somebody else's dysfunction. So be willing to turn a mirror on yourself and ask the question, maybe I'm sleeping great, but why are other people up at night? What dysfunction do I have across my team or with my people, or what barriers or obstacles are in place that are preventing others from being successful and carrying out their mission? And that's something I'm consistently thinking about now in an academic setting where my role is to help train the future generation to fill these mission critical skills gaps and to get talent out there who are able to see into the future and react to it today.
Awesome. Okay, Charlie, you get the clearance policy question, my favorite. So let's talk about clearance policy. What do you see as areas for growth or change in that policy over the next maybe 5 years, we'll say?
It's a trick question.
As a growth in policies, do anybody here think we need more policies out there? I don't think so either. I'm a big fan of maturing policies, of evolution of policies. And certainly the current change that's going on in the clearance world here with something that started, 2017, 2018, Trusted Workforce 2.0 is taking this in a direction it really needs to go in. And I'd say this in two ways. One is, I could actually, if you gave me a lot more time here, Linda, you could get up and give a briefing on a study that I discovered that talks about problems with industrial clearances and industrial security, the timeliness of them, all the sorts of problems, and the need to really get on top of this. And it was a congressionally sponsored study, and it very clearly articulated the problems that many of us struggle with today. Unfortunately, that study was done in 1957. And the reason I discovered it was reading a book in 1964 by the author saying, what the hell ever happened to this thing? And of course, you guys know, if you paid attention, we've had studies in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and on and on and on. And what's different this time, in the previous times, there was always a study done, a committee would form, come up with all these brilliant ideas, and then they all go home. Today, and you're going to hear from Matt Eanes, I think either today or tomorrow, Matt Eanes has been carrying this water for the last several years to keep this moving and keep this Trusted Workforce 2.0 piece in process here. And I think the changes that are coming out of that are good on two fronts. One is it's going to allow for more flexibility, hopefully, with clearances. And secondly, because this is all about trusted people. And unlike what some people might believe, you are not trusted forever, nor are you distrusted forever. And the idea behind this Trusted Workforce 2.0 is that people don't wake up one morning and say, I'm going to betray my country. They devolve over time. And if you can see this person devolving earlier in the game and do something about it, intervene in it, then more times than not, and I've seen this in real life, you can get them back on the track and make them productive, make them and continue that level of trust in them. Or make an early decision that it's time to go and get them out of there quickly before they start taking everything out the door here. So I think that's absolutely truly an important part of this.
Well, and I think it's worth noting that the policies have all changed over the past through Trusted Workforce. I mean, they have the policy framework has been done, but now it's being implemented across the agencies. So my pushback here is if your agency is still following a 1950s framework, please call us. I mean, call me. Maybe they may not want to get your call yet because they're not adhering to their own new policies with Trusted Workforce 2.0. Like to your point, we've grown this baby. Now are we gonna how are we gonna treat it?
So if they're using 1950s technology to get that message to you, it's going to be a memo arriving in your. But actually, it dovetails with what you were talking about with artificial intelligence. And one of the things that there's a lot of fear out there that artificial intelligence is going to cripple us all. And I would just say, take a deep breath, understand what AI really, really is, and look for these opportunities for it to help make your jobs a whole lot easier. It's not going to be quite as scary as people want to happen. And back to, you talked about Lazarus being raised up from the dead. I've raised up 3 times from the dead. I've retired 3 times, and I can't seem to figure this piece out. But I go back to the scary part at a certain 3-letter agency when we're going to put in local area networks. Oh my God, how can we even have that happen here? We've got to still send stuff through the pneumatic tubes to get things to everybody in the building here. So technology is going to catch up. It's going to help us do our jobs. Use it to help, don't use it to bring things down.
The fact that there's new technology that scares people is not new. That's throughout history, right? And we're talking with somebody yesterday. They said they can remember when the internet was new, right? And it was oh, that's gonna change the world. That's gonna make humans less important, and it didn't. There's a great book that is, I think it's called "Humility is the New Smart." It talks about human and machine pairing. And, the good thing about technology is it can help focus the human mind, and so the human mind can concentrate on doing critical thinking and these things. So it's just a part of adaptation. But going back to the policy, and since it's kind of new, this policy advisory board, right? If you're wondering, well, what sort of policies do we want to talk about and discuss? Any sort of policy that is preventing you from being effective at your job. And this is an opportunity over the next couple of days to discuss those items and let us know about them. Because if there's anything that's preventing you from going out and getting the best people to do what our nation needs to be done, I'm concerned about it. And Charlie was kind of talking about this. We're really good at creating policy or rules and regulations. We're really horrible at getting rid of them. And they don't tend to keep pace with change. We do a much better job at thinking about that with technology, right? And changing policies. But even there, the change outpaces the policy. And I lived this where I had a new device that had no data at rest. It was a secure device, and I was given this. I was the SOCOM J2, and it was called a SMEPED, if anybody remembers those, precursor to the SIPR droid. But I was excited because I'm like, oh, I can travel now, right? I can travel with this device, and I can, no data at rest. I can dial back in. I can see what my boss is asking me, so I don't have to find out about it a week from now. And they said, yes, sir, you can, but you have to lock it up in a GSA approved safe. So I'm like, so I can travel, but I have to carry a GSA approved safe with me, right? But that policy didn't envision that device, right? And I will tell you, and you probably know this better than we are, there are policies that did not envision the way that we need to take care of our talent, right? And because that's a function as well, just like creating new technology. Technology evolves. The way we should be pulling in talent, nurturing that talent, growing that talent needs to change and evolve as well. And I would argue, people first, that ought to be the things, those ought to be the things that we're tackling as a priority, right? So help us help you, help us help you.
Well, and getting to the heart of that, sometimes staffing can be considered, and security both, this is why I love them, are not considered the mission critical functions they are. They're overhead functions. So people forget, like, if you want to accomplish the mission, you have to have a people first strategy in order to get it done. So my last question before we go to a couple of audience questions is just, I was listening to an interview with the OPM director, and he was talking about a stat that I've heard Mark Fraunfelter cite for the IC of when they were looking across the federal workforce, they saw, I think 8% was 30 and under. So they were kind of touting, like, they do plan to open up hiring across the federal government. They want to push more young people into government careers. From my vantage point, there's a lot of policies that make it really hard to, and firing all the probationary employees certainly doesn't help. But there's a lot of barriers to entry-level talent going into federal service, and you've certainly experienced that in different capacities. So do you see either opportunities for policy or areas where we need to shift in this that actually, if this is a goal, is to attract more people into, government service, because less than 8% of them are 30 and under, where do we go to get that done?
I mean, we're really talking about building the bench here, right? And the number of panicked phone calls I received from recent graduates somewhere in the January, February timeframe, my inbox my DMs were full. And so anything that we can do to help build that bench. So I'm going to tout my former boss, Congressman Rob Whitman from Virginia. He's been very supportive of adding additional spots for contractors to pay for more clearances. And I'm oversimplifying this. That's great. That helps build the bench. It helps have a kind of a reserve, on tap if people move, if people leave. That's all well and good. From the university lens, though, and I will talk about Northeastern in this case, we do co-op. We do full-time, semester-long paid work experiences for undergraduate and graduate students with an employer. And I have a LLC embedded in our National Security Research Institute that can put students on our security contracts at classified contracts at the institution, get them a clearance and hold their clearance, and then help support them in their transition to working for you as a co-op. If we can scale this and partner across academia to help start that pipeline going earlier and help students understand the mission, the requirements set, getting them excited about public service, but then have a place to funnel them, that's going to be, for me, the trick. So anything that will help us build the bench and then attract and retain that talent is going to be important. But we can't do that without the follow-on policy or removal of policy that then becomes a barrier to that next stage.
Let me add to that a little bit here, because one of the real challenges, and I think it's primarily for the folks here in this room here, is you're not hiring people for the government, you're hiring people to work on contract for the government. And it's pretty straightforward that if I enlist, excuse me, if I enlist in the Navy or the Army right now as a what is it, E1, I'm going to get a clearance because I'm a soldier. I'm a rifleman. If I try to get a job with, pick your favorite manufacturer, Lockheed, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, on an assembly line, there are limitations, there are artificial limitations as to how many people can get clearances on these. And within those limitations, it's twofold. One is the overhead people, even up to including vice presidents, sometimes don't get to be cleared because they don't need to know what's going on in that thing. And really, from a management standpoint, that makes no sense. More importantly, as you build your crew up of people to do this work, doesn't it make sense to have trusted people working on your project? I think of a Navy pilot, one of Bob's guys, coming out and kicking the tires on one of those aircraft and saying, "Man, I'm sure glad that guy didn't have a clearance who was assembling this thing." In fact, so that's, I think, important that we try to find ways to get the government to allow more and more people to get clear, because the only real cost to the government in this is twofold. One is it costs a few dollars to get somebody cleared and maybe keep them in continuous vetting, but the potential loss for not having trusted people in these jobs is, I think, even more dangerous.
And on a positive note, because I started by saying, here's something that was almost keeping me up at night, right? And the decision that was actually executed much better, but, an initial discussion or directive to come out and maybe get rid of a bunch of probationary hires wasn't executed that way. There is always opportunity with new leadership teams coming into position. Nobody comes in to a new position of import saying, hey, let's go really slow and do small things, right? Everybody comes in with fire in their belly and wanted to do really important things. And so I think we have an opportunity to be that bully pulpit where we say, there's nothing more important than our people and our partnerships. And from my perspective, we need to not be thinking about individual pathways to involvement and leadership, right? We need to create some more interaction and flexibility and collaboration between our strength that we have, our humans that we have in government, in industry, in academia, so that we can create better options for our future leaders. We also need to do a better job of getting people aware and excited about future opportunities at a much younger age. So I'm passionate about getting into the K through 12 system. We start thinking we often in government will recruit from certain levels. We need to at least educate and excite much earlier in the developmental phase, I think.
Start recruiting elementary schools, people. I can't afford to send any of my kids to college, so I always say, please recruit them now. I mean, they're ready. Do we have time for maybe one or two audience questions? Do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Do we have mic? Did we find mics? Okay. Ron. No, yeah. Okay.
So a trend I'm starting to see is something I'm starting to call the millennial clearance gap, and kind of how older individuals with 20 plus years, they have the clearance. Then you have these younger individuals, they have the clearance. And then you are missing the 10, 15 years of, basically the millennial generation who do not have clearances. What do you see as kind of the stopgap between the skills bridge between individuals that are coming up to retirement and are leaving with those clearances, and then the individuals that are coming in that can do those jobs, but are not yet in that middle management area where they can kind of bridge those skills? And is there anything that can be done to maybe entice the government or any of these contractors to start vetting and bringing in your middle career individuals to get them clearances faster and bring them in to fill those gaps?
It sounds like you're explaining the traffic phenomenon on 66 or 495, where it's like really bunched up and it slows down and then it breaks open and then it bunches up again. But the reason that kind of imagery came to my mind is I run into this problem all the time. I'll talk to a company, they come to me and they're like, we want unicorns. We want the people that know the technology and the policy and the strategy, and they have the leadership skills, and they have a clearance, and they have all these credentials. I'm like, that's really exciting for you. That's not going to happen. But my question back is, I'm sure your company has a technology acquisition plan, some sort of business development strategy, some sort of vision for where you want to go in the next 5 years. What is your talent acquisition, retention, workforce planning, upskilling plan look like that matches where the company wants to go in terms of investment in their business line or in technology? And most of the times, there is zero alignment there. So I think that helps too, is what is this human resources planning that ebbs and flows? And how are we, again, predicting the future for when some of those bathtubs in the human resources part come up?
I'll add to that too. Every generation has talented individuals, right, in this nation that we could recruit from. So if we do have gaps, we just need to do, I call it intrusive talent management, right? You need to have a plan to say, hey, these are the types of individuals we need. And then as you're going through in your process, like, well, how do we bring them in? Just start listing down like why somebody says no. And throughout my career, I probably drove my staff crazy, but I don't like to hear no. And I don't push back, like get angry. I'm just like, why? Like, what is it? Is it physics? Is it engineering? Is it a policy? Is it resources? And once you start to break down why we're preventing ourselves from doing something that we know and need to do, there are options for changing those things. And I would tell my team, we won't break the law, rules and regulations, but we won't be afraid of changing them, right? We forget sometimes that quite often the things that are preventing us from doing what we know and need to do is ourselves. Like, it's human based. And I think that's really important. And then I think we need to have more flexibility in how we think about talent and not restrict ourselves to a smaller pool based off of criteria we develop for ourselves. The military was having some success in going out and pulling in people from industry at a mid-grade, right? And they were just recognizing, hey, I know they didn't serve as an ensign and a lieutenant JG and a lieutenant, but they've done these other things that have prepared them to come in and contribute and add value at this level. We should be doing that across our workforce.
What they said.
Contract reform helps with that too, because a lot of times you're looking for those mid-career professionals because your contracts require that. And also education piece, right? I mean, we want to educate K through 12, but my DMs are full of middle-aged people doing drugs who are asking about their clearances. So I also feel like knowing what makes you clearable as a middle-aged person who gets more entrenched in habits and why it's worth, it's still worth pursuing national security. I think we have time for one more question. I saw somebody with their hand raised, so I didn't scare them away yet. No? Oh, over there? Do you see him? We just keep running, Brandon. You can do it.
My spirit animal is the chubby unicorn, if you were going to ask that.
I have the same one, sir. So do you guys have any insight on small businesses that are operating inside of the defense sector on how to capture entry-level talent that don't have a clearance when we have limited overhead, limited, we're subcontract most of the time, not operating as a prime, so we don't have any say really in who gets the clearance or not?
We are trying to develop more of a security as a service posture, and I think some other universities are looking at this too. And how do I bring someone up through the university, maybe train them to be an FSO, get them some certifications, get them in a security clearance pipeline if we can put them on a contract at the university. We're doing some one-offs like that right now, but happy to talk to you about it. But that's just one small, plan of attack. I don't know the broader answer to this question, but I do know we're constantly asked, hey, you have capability to do classified research. Can we work with you? Can we have an MOU to use your facility? Could we do some joint trainings and convenings? And I want to say yes to every single one of them.
Well, and we are seeing Northeastern remains my favorite, but George Mason has their Clearance Ready program. Northern Virginia Community College is the same way. And I know a lot of that is trying to match them. And I think sadly, those programs often draw in a lot of the prime contractors, but maybe you as a sub can reach out to the listed primes that are in there and say, hey, we would like to be, a co-op, intern partner for this. Can you put some of those billets within our contract? And I do think this is why the policy piece comes in as well, though. There is some legislation even proposed in the NDAA talking about opening up overhead spots, allowing contractors to pay for more clearances. All of that is always very controversial, but the more avenues those get opened up, I think, and I think this is where AI, technology, continuous vetting reframes the conversation of saying, if we can keep somebody under continuous vetting, we should allow a little more trust for these trusted companies to increase their bench.
And then this is not a really a good answer to what you're saying, but it's a somewhat of an answer is don't tackle that problem alone, right? Reach out and have a strong relationship with other small businesses that are having the same challenge, and then just keep coming to forums like this and other professional forums within the national security realm where you can be an advocate, a voice, right? That says if you want to tap into the talents of small businesses, we need to figure out ways of doing things differently, and don't figure it out alone. Let people start to figure it out collectively.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much to our beloved, fantastic ClearanceJobs Policy Advisory Board, Bob Sharp, Jamie Jones-Miller, Charlie Phalen. It is an honor for me that you guys will allow me to talk to you at every event I go to, and let alone help our collective community. Because to the point of what you just said, Bob, there is a lot that we can do to improve this process, but the small businesses are not going to accomplish it on their own. You got to be with INSA, AFCEA, lobbying together, and ClearanceJobs is certainly one of those voices that wants to help do that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I promise I won't talk.